Remember the good old days when games actually had heart? Back when you could actually feel the dedication that was put into the game, into every little detail? Remember when games created a safe space for all the people who needed to get away from certain things that bothered them in life? Well, those days are gone, and instead of beautifully crafted games with good stories, fun gameplay, and a sense of escaping the real world, we get this.
So, I'm non-binary.
Okay, maybe I'm being too harsh while judging these games. Maybe these games are actually genius, and maybe underneath all the trash writing, bad gameplay, and all the propaganda that got shoved into these video games, there's actually something fun that we not so bright gamers just can't see. There's not. Okay, who am I kidding? These games outright suck, and I absolutely despise how gamers today are labeled as misogynistic, racist, toxic, and pretty much every other possible insult that studio executives can think of. In reality, the problem is not the gamer that doesn't want to support a hot steaming pile of turd, but it's those stinky butt executives and investors who push studios to pander to an audience that isn't there. This is one of the main reasons many of the AAA titles today fail. When we take a look back at the 90s, the 2000s, and even up until COVID happened, a lot of games that came out really had that magic about them. You could really feel that the developers thought about you, the customer, having an enjoyable experience. It's what drove the industry to push out masterpiece after masterpiece, all while innovating with every new iteration that came out. Today, that's not the case anymore, as we get soulless, repetitive, and outright insulting games that pander to modern audiences, while in reality, the same modern audience does not give a shit about those games. Today, certain studios think their customer base is gonna swallow any kind of turd that they push out their rear end, and in many cases, especially in sports games, that is true. Let's take EA and 2K for example. Two of the biggest gaming companies in the entire fucking observable universe, each company having a monopoly on certain sports games and absolutely refusing to create any kind of innovative content for the past 8 years. With EA, it was FIFA, which is now EAFC, and Madden, while 2K absolutely dominates sales with the NBA games, which is of course to be expected as they were pretty much the only one making them for the past 10 years. In reality, 2K plays worse now than it did in 2015 when the last good NBA game came out. EAFC, on the other hand, is a scripted shit show that makes you want to rip out your cojones and feed them to yourself while buying more coins to spend on your virtual team, only to get shit on by a 12-year-old who spent the entire week preparing to cheese his way through FUT champs. The same, and quite frankly worse, can be said for 2K, especially as the my play in 2K is one of the most vile, evil, and sadistic experiences that you can have as a casual player. If you're not someone who will sit in front of their TV or monitor for 6 to 8 hours per day to grind my career and get your overall up to a 90 plus, you can forget about stepping out into the park and having an enjoyable experience. And don't get me started on Madden. For me, personally, the last good Madden game, which wasn't even a Madden game, was ESPN's NFL 2K5. And I didn't even get to play that game until 2014. But that is a game that will show you what I mean when I say that the games before had heart and were offering you a place to escape from your everyday struggles. I mean, just look at this gameplay. Man, the game had motherfucking first person in 2005. For these companies and for these games, it's not about giving the player a memorable experience anymore. It's about giving you an expensive one that you will have to spend countless hours on just to have an opportunity to enjoy online play. Moving on from sports titles, the more problematic thing than monetization has to be the absolute lack of any innovation. When I look back at the Far Cry games, for instance, Far Cry 1 to 3, all had something interesting added to them and felt special in their own way. The same can be said for the Assassin's Creed games, as all the earlier games just had that special something that made them stand out. Even today, when you compare them to the newest ones like Far Cry 6, Odyssey, Valhalla, those old games just feel like they were made with love and a healthy dose of thought about the player experience. Even though they all have the same formula, they still felt like works of art. Not to say that any of them were really perfect, nothing ever is, but compared to whatever pile of dung Ubisoft is coming up with now, those games actually defined an era of gaming. While these newer games are probably only going to define an era of propaganda in gaming that ended up failing miserably, which it will. The same thing I've said about Ubisoft can easily be applied to many of the other AAA studios, be it their publishers pushing to introduce certain things for the sake of pleasing investors, to drive up their diversity quotas, or just to give a giant middle finger to the casual gamer who wants to escape into a virtual world without having anything pushed down his throat. One of the most notorious things companies have started doing lately is blaming people for boycotting their games and labeling their own potential customers as being anti-woke. If there's one thing that I can safely say, and I bet many of the people watching this video will agree, is that gamers overall are more inclusive and diverse than any of the companies that are labeling them as anti-this or anti-that. And you know why? It's because the games that we grew up on taught us more things about diversity, strong female characters, well-written stories, and friendship than any school or woke media could do. Trying to blame gamers for your game failing miserably instead of taking a good hard look at all the things that are wrong with the game itself is a major red flag and is something a sleazy politician would do. Studios need to realize that games are meant to be fun, that they are a type of media for people to enjoy themselves, and it's not something that should serve as an outlet for a bigger force to push any kind of agendas onto regular Joes. The regular Joe only wants one thing, and that thing is disgustingly good gameplay that he can hop into once he gets back home from work. He will not complain about the women character being the lead if the character is well written. He will not say that the story sucks if you actually hire good writers based on their skill and not their political views. With hardware becoming more and more advanced, graphics coming close to full-on realism, and major studios pushing out turds left and right, it's the perfect time for smaller studios to create games that will touch into the void many gamers have inside of them. Games need to have an atmosphere that even when you don't play it for a long time, you still have that homey feeling when you put it up for a new playthrough. It needs all its parts to work together to create an experience that is worth replaying. From the music, to the gameplay, to the characters and story. All of it needs to give the players a sense of, we did this for you. This is your world now. In the end, there's only so much game developers can do when it comes to innovation, and I fully understand why we are where we are now, especially when it comes to sports games or action FPS shooters. But games like Baldur's Gate 3, Black Myth Wukong, Helldivers 2, and even Palworld all prove that fun games can still be made using old formulas. And in the case of Baldur's Gate 3, it checks all the inclusivity, diversity marks without pushing anything onto anyone. Something off topic here, but I can't help but say this. Like, does anyone get extremely annoyed that there's not a single good pirate RPG game done in the style of Red Dead 2? Where your ship would be your camp of sorts, like with a good story, fun gameplay incorporating gunfights, sword fights, ship battles, etc. If anyone ever pulls it off, that will be the best game of all time. Also, I know there's Skull and Bones, but let me just say, I would huck toward that pile of garbage before setting it on fire, before ever touching it. And while I'm on the topic of pirates, isn't it weird that the only good single-player pirate game out on the market is a bloody Assassin's Creed game? Yeah, that's quite honestly insane. Before finishing off this video, I want to say that most of the large game studios are becoming complacent and are pushing out games that don't really set any new bars. Yeah, some might look absolutely insane when it comes to the graphics, but graphics alone don't make a game fun. Art style is 10 times more important than the graphical fidelity. I mean, just take a look at GTA 4, RDR 1, RDR 2, and even Sleeping Dogs. All games with exceptional art styles that will keep them looking good even when the PS9 comes out. And it's not just the art style or gameplay that keeps those games fun in 2024. It's the music, the atmosphere, the world building, the small details that you don't even notice until you're like on your 7th playthrough. Like I said in my San Andreas video a while back, the same qualities that good movies or TV shows have, video games do as well. One thing I can say is that I'm absolutely thankful for being able to experience the PS2 era firsthand, as I've had a blast playing through games that define my childhood as well as me as a person. Games like Kingdom Hearts, Metal Gear Solid, Resident Evil 4, and I mean, out of all those games, I probably should have only played Kingdom Hearts as I was like 8, but I still enjoyed all of them, and with time, got a deeper understanding of things like the English language, and that ended up helping me out in school, which for someone from a third world shithole was huge. Okay, enough about my personal experience. You have to be brain dead to think that agendas in video games are okay. They're not. Games are not politics, and pushing anything in them that doesn't belong will result in major loss of profit. With time, I'm certain that most, if not all, the major publishers and studios will see the faults in their way, especially when the cash starts leaking out of their pockets like baby oil at a Diddy party. No one is above the customer, and that's how it is in business. And I think that many of these studios keep forgetting that the customer is always right. Well, maybe not always. Nonetheless, there's still hope, as even the darkest of times will pass, and with certain studios listening to their audiences, we will always have white knight games that will make us remember the good old times when games were made for the gamers and not for the sake of pleasing a board of profit-hungry investors or looking for a cut of the greatest revolution since the industrial one. With that said, I want to thank you all for watching. Please make sure to hit that like button and of course subscribe, as that way I will be able to give away an RTX 7090 when this channel reaches 10 million subscribers. Stay silly, keep edging, and of course, keep supporting games that are made with love. Peace.